Hello everyone, this is Gene and I'm back with another video. I hope you're all well. It's pretty early here in the city. It's a little after 8:30 here in New York City, so I hope everyone is well, and if you're not well, I hope that you're moving closer, closer to fine, as the song goes. So I just wanted to briefly discuss today something that's been, uh, I wouldn't say scorching the internet, but it's certainly something that I've seen many of the channels that I follow cover, which is this the idea of a female centric Star Wars TV show or being in the works, right? This female centric martial arts centric Star Wars show that's in the works. Supposedly, it is headed by a woman the person who is the creator or director of the show Russian Doll. Leslie Headland, I think her name is. My memory is awful. I think her name is Leslie Headland, right? And she's known for Russian Doll. There are other videos that go deeper into it than I will here, and I'll link to those. But what I wanted to discuss was less about her and just more about the idea in general of a female-centric lead in Star Wars at this particular point. Or just a female-centric lead in general in media at this particular point. Honestly, I think it's a mistake. I think it's a mistake at this point to have a female-centric lead. Now, let me explain why, because I know some people are going to take that and go, you're sexist, you're misogynist. No, that's not it at all. Let me explain. Before you have a freak out, let me explain. The reason I say this is because, unfortunately, Star Wars, right? Disney's trilogy of 4 films, right? And media in general have taken the idea of the female lead, of the female protagonist, and sadly they have dragged it through the mud, right? And they have just made it in some ways like a 4-letter word, this like dirty thing. Not that the idea or the concept in and of itself is bad. Again, I grew up in the 1990s, right? That was the age of the action girl. Again, I grew up watching shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Xena, right? And movies like Terminator 2 and The Fifth Element and all these different types of films. Again, I'm a huge comic fan, and I grew up reading She-Hulk and Miss Marvel and all this other stuff. So it isn't that I personally I'm against female leads, but I'm against our poor female leads and poor leads in general, because poor leads oftentimes lead to a poor story, which leads to financial failure. And sadly, that's what's happened with the female-led movie more often than not, especially if you look at, for example, last year, right? If you look at, say, February of last year to February of this year, right? A year, right, to just before the coronavirus hitting in March of this year, right, you had about, I would say, 6 or 7 female protag films, right? Those films are Alita Battle Angel, Captain Marvel, Terminator Dark Fate, the Dark Phoenix film, Charlie's Angels. Some would say Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, because of the lead character, Rey, being female. I tend to view Star Wars as more of a ensemble type thing, especially the main films, right? There's usually a trio of characters who the story revolves around. But I guess for the sake of argument, and because I'm talking about Star Wars anyway, I'll include it. So you have Rise of Skywalker, and then you have Birds of Prey. Those are 7 films, right? Only 3 of those films were financial successes, right? Birds of Prey flopped, Charlie's Angels flopped, the Dark Phoenix Saga film flopped. This is like the 3rd time they have tried to adapt that storyline. I don't know how they keep messing it up, but they do. So that film flopped, and Terminator Dark Fate, which brought back Sarah Connor, who's a beloved female heroine, right? That film flopped. So you have 4 flops and only 3 monetary successes, right? And 2 of those, right, Both of them from Disney, right? Captain Marvel is part of Marvel. Marvel is owned by Disney, so it's really from Disney. Two of them, had a boost, I would say. With Captain Marvel, it was Disney running all sorts of interference and doing the best that they could to suppress any negative press or opinion about the film prior to its release. And then, of course, there was the fact that it aired in March, right? And Avengers Endgame came out like late April of last year. So there was about a month, right? A month or so. And so a lot of people, at least in my understanding, went to see Captain Marvel, less because they were interested in the character of Carol Danvers, and more because they wanted to know and see, how much of a role might she play in Avengers Endgame, right? As we all know now, she didn't play that large a role. And she didn't even become the most popular or defining female character for Endgame. Every time I look up scenes like women in Avengers Endgame, what comes up? That scene of Scarlet Witch, trying to take out Thanos on her own, right? You took everything from me, that scene, right? So that was a huge assist, right? For Captain Marvel. I think that if the film had come out at a different time, it didn't have Disney playing interference, and then of course being about a month out from Avengers Endgame, I don't think it would have made the $1 billion+ that it did, if I'm perfectly honest. Then of course you have Rise of Skywalker, which did well less because it's a good film, and more because of the fact that it's a PG-rated film that came out during the winter holiday season, right? In that space right after Christmas, but a little before New Year's. So naturally, excuse me. So naturally, people who were home or who were taking time off to be with their families took their families to go see the movie, right? So that film benefited from the holiday season. Again, I think that if it is released prior to the holiday season, right, it probably would not do as well financially. This is not to say it would fail necessarily, but I don't think it would have done as well as it did. Those two films, both from Disney, had huge assists as regards when they were released, whereas these other films that ended up failing did not have those assists. The only film that was successful that I would say did it honestly was Alita Battle Angel, right? Because that had a sincere groundswell of support and people encouraging others, telling others, making videos, telling others, look, this is an awesome film. You need to go check it out. So that was the only one, at least in my opinion, of the 7, right, of the 3 that actually made a profit or at least made their money back, right, did not flop. That honestly did so through positive fan reaction, right, and word of mouth and that type of thing, whereas the others had great big assist by Disney and the time period when they were released. But the other 4, as I previously mentioned, flopped. Now I want to be clear, those films flopped because they were bad films. They did not flop because they were female-led films. The problem is that the media narrative that Hollywood, that Disney kept pushing was focused on the gender of the lead character, right? Whether it was a new character, right, or whether it was a returning character, like say Sarah Connor, who is a beloved action hero, right? Linda Hamilton has that role, right? Her in Terminator 2 is always going to be etched in people's minds, right? That is how people will always Jesus Christ, I can't talk. Remember her. I don't know why I'm struggling with words this morning, right? And there was a lot of hype surrounding the film initially because she was coming back. But then what happened, right? John Connor gets gets killed off like not even 5 minutes into the film, and the people just had a fit, and many people, at least from the reviews I saw, were upset about how Sarah Connor's character was handled, and in particular her like regretting motherhood and things of that nature. Basically, if I remember some of the reviews correctly, there was some fan backlash or discontent over the fact that she came across as too masculine a character, which is amazing given that her character was incredibly masculine in Terminator 2. But anyway, right, these films ended up failing because they were bad films. But because Hollywood kept pushing the gender aspect, watch this film because it stars a woman, especially the messaging toward men, right? Watch this film because it stars a woman, and we need your support, but the film isn't made for you. But if you don't go see it, then you're a sexist, misogynist pig, right? And then invariably, when it fails, what did at least certain directors do, right? Liz Banks came out and blamed men, said that men should have came and saw the film, right? Keep in mind that of the audience that did see the film, at least I remember reading that of the audience that did see the film, the majority of them were men, because it was an action film, and men like action films, right? Or recently, as we saw with Birds of Prey, Kathy Yan trying to absolve herself of any responsibility by saying that expectations were too high, and these expectations were set upon her because she's a director of color. Somebody please remind her that she's Asian and therefore does not fit on the progressive stack anymore. I think someone needs to notify her of this. But seriously, these were her excuses, right? But when you have these very public failures, and you keep pushing a certain narrative of woman, female lead, female director, for better or worse, people eventually are just going to associate women, in particular a female lead and a female director, with a gender-driven anti-male, and it's going, more likely than not, is going to flop. Is that fair? No. Is that right? No. Is that what's happened because of Hollywood? Yes. So I think, honestly, especially with Disney and how they tore down a 40-plus year franchise and piece of American media Americana, a film icon like Star Wars, tore it down in less than 5 years with their poor films. I think really, first of all, they should just lay off the Star Wars stuff for a while. If I remember correctly, the higher-ups at Disney were saying that after Rise of Skywalker, they were going to lay off the Disney stuff, but now you have Clone Wars, and you have Mandalorian, you have the season 2 of that, and you have the High Republic, and now this show. It's like, really, where are you laying off on Star Wars? But anyway, right, I really think at this point, they really should not do a series that has a female lead because of the bad blood, right, and the bad faith that they have instilled in fans. Because whether it's people who make videos or whether it's just the average fan who just isn't going to be bothered, when you've taken the Star Wars name and you've put it through the mud, and you've taken the idea of the female protag and you've put it through the mud, most people, especially now that we're stuck in the coronavirus and people are losing their jobs or not working as much, right? Disposable income is at a premium, and people have to decide where they're going to spend that. And they're not going to spend that on something that, if they look at the pattern, it's going to go, oh, let's see, this this was a failure, this was a failure. Okay, that one worked out, sort of, but this was a failure, right? When the pattern generally shows failure, people are not going to invest. You may get some hardcore faithful who will buy Star Wars anything, but those people are not enough to keep the franchise afloat, let alone repair it and put it in good standing again, not just financially, but also with fans, which is the most important part, right? Squaring things up and making the fans happy again. The only caveat I would give personally is that maybe it would be a little bit different if this female series had a female lead that was well known and beloved by all or nearly all members of the franchise, right? Someone like Princess Leia, Mara Jade, Ahsoka, a character like that. In fact, right, Ahsoka has been, or at least the rumor, is that the character of Ahsoka is going to appear in The Mandalorian Season 2. And that news has been generally met with positivity. Now, to be fair, I'm talking about the character of Ahsoka, not the actress. The actress, at least at present, is Rosario Dawson. And there's been a mixed reaction. Some are very happy. Some are trying to get her canceled because of allegations that she and her family abused a trans person who was working for them. I don't know too much about that. Not going to comment, but this is more about the idea of the character of Ahsoka being in The Mandalorian. And generally speaking, fans, at least from what I've seen online, have been very positive and receptive to that. Plus, there's, of course, Clone Wars Season 7, which is more or less the Ahsoka show, and that so far has been generally well received. So maybe, if they were taking a beloved female character, again, like Leia, Mara, Ahsoka, and making the series about them, maybe then it would go over a little bit better. I think it would still be a calculated risk, but at least it would be a female character fans know and love and are willing to take that risk on. But to my knowledge, the supposed female protag hasn't been mentioned yet, so it could either be a new character, which I think fans are not going to take a chance on, because last time they took a chance on an unknown female character, they got Rey. Or it might be somebody who is not well known to the general Star Wars fan base, I guess you could say. And sometimes going with an unknown or someone who is little known can work. But again, given the current climate, it's not a gamble. I don't gamble, but if I did, it's not a gamble I would take, because again, they've set this very negative, sadly, very negative precedent of female equals failure, right? The idea was the force is female or the future is female. The message they've actually sent, right? Disney, Marvel, Hollywood in general has been female is failure, which of course is untrue, right? Plenty of successful women and successful TV shows and movies that have women in them or women as the lead. But again, this is the message they have sent out. So there's all that. I think also what they need to do before they try to do a show, or at least another show, because they're supposed to be working on the High Republic, and that is supposed to, right, one of the big characters, main characters, is supposed to be Avar Kriss, who everybody and their mother, including myself, has complained about. Right, so there's that. But honestly, I think that what they should focus on is rebuilding or rather I should say repairing, there's the word, repairing their relationship with the fans. And honestly, I think that part of repairing the relationship with the fans would be, at least for the next 2 or 3 attempts, is making more male-oriented media, or at least media starring men, putting men, showing men in strong, positive, heroic roles. A good example of this is The Mandalorian. I firmly believe, from what I've seen of it, that part of the appeal and part of the reason why it works is that it is very much a masculine story, right? It's a space western, right? It's a space western, and at least from best I can tell, it has strong elements of Lone Wolf and Cub. Whenever I see ads for it, I'm like, oh, him and Baby Yoda, it's basically Lone Wolf and Cub in space. For those who are not familiar with Lone Wolf and Cub, it's like a manga, if I remember correctly, from like the 70s, but it's about a samurai who's been disgraced and he has to try to restore his honor and find the samurai who dishonored him and killed his wife, and he has a little baby with him, right? It's a very masculine samurai story, and I think that's the appeal, right? Western. The Western in general tends to be very masculine, right? The loner gunslinger cowboy, who would be Mando in this case, coming in, righting wrongs, and then leaving by sunset. Another example, of course, is just samurai films, samurai tales in general. They translate well, at least when both sides are done properly. They translate well to the American Western. Best example, of course, is Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai. The Western translation or equivalent is the Western The Magnificent Seven, right? So there's a distinct masculinity and maleness about The Mandalorian as a show. Even its most prominent female character, I think, Cara Dune, right, played by Gina Carano, who is a former MMA fighter, right, and even the character she plays is a very masculine woman, right? So there is a lot of testosterone, basically, at least from best I can tell, in this show, and I think that's part of the appeal. People have been so soured on these poor films that sadly have pushed this narrative of love me because I am female, and Star Wars in particular, right, tore down their male characters, such as Han Solo by making him a deadbeat dad, such as Luke Skywalker by breaking him emotionally, right? Even certain characters like, say, Ben Solo, right? He never, at least from what I know of the Disney trilogy, he never really came off as a man, right? He never came off as this, grown, fallen hero of a man the way Anakin did. He came across more as like, a whiny teenage poser than he did an actual man who's been through life, who's loved and lost, and people understood, Anakin's downfall, right? I think Ben Solo, again, he just didn't have that masculinity. He always came across to me as an edgy teen boy who just never grew up, right? Maybe he grew up in age and height, but he never grew up mentally. Whereas Vader has always been presented, even back when he was Anakin Skywalker and still a member of the Jedi Order, as this powerful, man. That's the best way I can put it. There's a stark difference, and I think if you are familiar with both characters, you'll understand what I'm talking about. It's very hard to explain, but it's one of those things like when you see it, you know it. So given that Disney has done this, they've taken so many of their male characters, especially the male characters in Star Wars that many people, men and women, grew up with and admired and learned from and broke them, and just took excuse my English, but just took their balls, right? Right, and just put them in a purse, as the saying goes. I think having a show like The Mandalorian, which is very masculine, if they continue with the show, and if they continue to make media like that, right, that shows men as these powerful creatures who are not, inept or useless or deadbeats or whatever, I think they could slowly mend the rift, and then when the fans trust them a little again and don't feel like they're gonna be hoodwinked, then maybe you can introduce a show that has a female lead, because then people won't be so automatically female lead, it's agenda. People won't be so quick to attack or quick to dismiss. But as it is, instead of trying to make amends with fans, Disney, in their infinite wisdom, even as Disney World and Disneyland and Disney everything burns to the ground thanks to the coronavirus, and they want to put out something which or at least float the idea, because no one knows if this will actually get made. But they want to float the idea of another female director, another female protagonist, which at this point people are going to be incredibly weary of. And they're going to meet it, I think most people, whether they say it or not, are going to meet it with distrust and disdain. And at least from what I've heard of when it comes to other content creators who have covered this, the woman who is going to be the head, right? She doesn't have any science fiction work under her belt as of yet. So that's also another cause for concern, in my personal opinion. So generally speaking, to sum it all up, I think this is a bad move on Disney's part. Maybe if this were, again, a story about a well-known female like Mara, Leia, Ahsoka, maybe then it's a calculated risk, and maybe if you dress it up nicely, maybe fans would be more open to it. But as it stands, it's not. It's not a good idea. I don't think this is going to work out well for them. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a grumpy woman from New York City. So anyway, I will see you all in the next one. Have a good day or night wherever you are. Be safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you around. I have a few more videos. I am going to finish my Samara character study. I've just got a lot of stuff to do, and that's been getting in the way. But it's coming. I've got lots of projects coming up. So anyway, see y'all around. Bye.